Opening night of the NBA season is close. It's Tuesday, October 18th. Do you think the Golden State Warriors can repeat? To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering you a 7-day NBA package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 23rd at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo. There is no limit to the number of handicappers that you can get. Just head to your favorite capper's homepage.
Hey guys, welcome in on a very happy Thursday to you here now, the 13th of October. It is not Friday, it is Thursday, and that means week 7 college football season is upon us. We had one game last night, a couple of more tonight, a few more tomorrow, and then, wow, a lot of top 25 teams in action on Saturday. We're going to break down a few of these games for you, and we're going to do it with 3 of the finest as we welcome in Adam Trigger in the house, Steve Merril, 2 R's, 1 L, and of course, Drew Martin here, ready to go here, guys, on what proves to be pretty damn exciting week 7 here. Contenders, pretenders. We're going to learn a lot about a few teams here this weekend, Trig. But kick us off. Tell us, what do you got locked and loaded, ready to go here in week 7 tonight?
Yeah, I've got multiple college football plays up, 5% max bet on Saturday, 3-0 on those so far this season. I've only had 3 of them. They've all won. Going back to last season, 5% plays college football, 6-1 run. I don't think I've had a losing college football weekend since week 1. So I think I started out of the gate with like a 1-3, and I've won every week since. So it's been a really good run in college football over the past month or so. And we're going to be adding NFL. Commanders, 4% play for me tonight. I tweeted it out for free. So go on over to Twitter and you can check out some analysis for that at Top Play SI. And you can find everything else on my page.
All right, a little Thursday Night Football to dabble in to get it going here. College as well, Merrill. Don't forget, we got some baseball games. No KBO on your list, Merrill. I know it isn't. But tell me, what do you got locked and loaded for us here?
Yeah, actually, Adam and I, before the show, were talking about the playoff format over at KBO Korea, and they do a ladder. So I recommend looking into that 5-4-3-2-1. Basically, 5s play more than the 4s. I really like that format. So I might be watching some KBO in the near future. Don't ever discount that, Joe Ranieri. I'm a very diverse individual, as you know. I will have a college football top 25 video tomorrow night on Friday here on WagerTalk TV. NFL Fade the Public this Saturday. There are 15 undefeated teams remaining. 14 of them are in the top 25. James Madison just cracked it for the first time ever, number 25. Coastal Carolina is the only undefeated team not in the top 25 as we speak. So we'll see how that turns out this weekend. Also, I will not be using my Washington Commanders tonight. Adam Trigger's Washington Commanders. He's on board with them. But I am using the over-under in that game. I'm not touching either one of those sides, man. I'll tell you what. We talked about this game twice on Wednesday on Wager Talk today. Talked to it again Thursday with Adam. And I've got a best bet on this over-under for this game tonight. Also a college football game for Thursday night. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
All right, good stuff there, Merrill. Drew will attest. Of all the guys on the screen right now, there's only one lunatic who would hang out with the KBO, and it's not Drew, Steve, or myself. So, Drew, talk to us here, my man. I know you're ready. Week 7 here. What's on tap? What do you got locked and loaded for us?
Yeah, Joe, I am on tap, absolutely. And you bring up KBO. I did dabble around, at the depths of the pandemic, usually with a couple beers in hand, and just trying to make my way through with actual sports on the other side of the world. But now that we have a full slate of college football, NFL as well, MLB playoffs, KBO is no longer on my mind, Joe. So getting after it, and 2 clean sweeps so far this week. Looking to get another one here tonight in Thursday night football. So that's what I got going here. WagerTalk.com.
All right. Well, guys, visit it now there. You can just head over. Steve Merril, Adam Trigger, Drew Martin. They are ready to go. Look into those 3-day, 7-day, 30-day all-access packages. Why we look into the SEC. Let's check it out here, guys. Kentucky. Taking on Mr. Leach and Mississippi State. Mississippi State 4 is what we are seeing here. 49 is the number. 7:30 will be the kickoff time for here. And Drew, nobody loves the SEC like you do, so talk to me here, my man. Will Levis, no Will Levis, does it even matter against Mississippi State here?
Joe, I do think it matters. I mean, there's a possibility he'll be the #1 selection in the NFL draft. So he's a big part of this, but we have seen a little move here in the markets, which makes me think that he will play. I mean, if we're getting a 3-point move, 6.5 down to 2.5 anyway, 2.5-point move from 6.5 down to 4. Usually these days, with a program like Kentucky, can they keep it under wraps? Well, he is practicing here. That's what I think is kind of leading this move here. Will Levis, a good quarterback overall. According to the offensive coordinator, he looks good in practice as well. But up against Mississippi State, kind of riding under the radar here is Mississippi State's quarterback, Will Rogers. He already has 2,000 yards passing on the season, over 20 touchdowns. I mean, they are 5-1. We're halfway through the season, and Mississippi State, in my opinion, Joe, riding under the radar here. And yes, I do love the SEC. I mean, an SEC alum. I'm not one of these diehards, though. One thing I don't like about the SEC, Joe, is their scheduling. I mean, I just feel like these divisions, we need to blow it up and change it. And if you don't know how it works, it's kind of confusing. There's permanent opponents on each side, and these two are permanent opponents. So they've played each other a bunch. And one interesting trend that caught my attention here, Joe, the series host is 8-0 against the spread the last 8 meetings. That points towards Kentucky here. SEC East, SEC West kind of rivalry here. That's what would keep me off of the Mississippi State side. I'd actually look towards Kentucky at home.
Okay, like in UK, it's an interesting, certainly an interesting matchup here, Steve, from the standpoint of people don't talk about Mississippi State's defense. I think you think of Leach, you think of air raid, but there's some defense coming in this game. Mississippi State can certainly hold their own on that side of the ball. What do you think we get in this matchup?
I've had some good segues today. When I hosted WagerTalk today earlier, some great segues. I recommend people go back and watch that replay. And I'm going to segue KBO baseball to an SEC football game. That's how good my segues are today. Because earlier this week on Tuesday morning, Kevin Dolan lives in Korea now. So we're doing Tuesday morning videos because he's 13 hours ahead of us in Korea. Joe Ranieri, Kevin Dolan, and myself talked about this game on Tuesday. And the reason I bring that up is because we had the uncertainty of the quarterback, like Drew just said. That line was 6.5. Now it's 4. The over-under was 46. Now it's 49. So just like Drew said, the odds makers, the betting market is obviously pricing in the fact Kentucky's going to have their starting quarterback. Now, I'm not sure he's 100% healthy, though, so a lot of uncertainty still in this game. My math model, which just looks at the results on the field, has Mississippi State as a 3-point favorite in this game. So obviously the current line of 4 is pretty much in line with that. You mentioned how Mississippi State relies heavily on the pass attack. And yes, they're not a good running team. Leach has never been a running team, but he runs the ball 25 times. They throw the ball 48. So they do run the ball more than people realize. And a lot of the passing game is just short dump offs, kind of little dip off, dunks, that kind of passes, which are like a running play. The team that's not running the ball well this year, though, is Kentucky. They're averaging just 2.9 rush attempts per carry on 34 carries a game. So that's why the quarterback situation is so important in this game. Too much uncertainty for me. If he's 100% healthy, there does look to be some value with Kentucky as a home dog.
All right. Kentucky, little home dog, and line has moved, like Drew said. Certainly means, at least we should think it means there, Trig, that, Levis is going here. So what do you think? Are you looking the home dog way or Mississippi State's way?
Yeah, so I'm just... The guys nailed most of the main talking points here, so I'm just going to talk about betting this game and how maybe you would bet it now. Joe, I took some 6.5 earlier this week. Not something I gave out. I got the text from someone I respect that said Levis is going to play. I took 6.5, and sure enough, it was very quickly less than that. So, I agree with Kentucky being the right side here. Drew brought it up. Really good angle in this series. 8 straight wins for the home team against the spread, and I think it's a good spot for Kentucky coming off that loss, assuming Levis is playing, which I can just about say with certainty that he will. As far as betting the game now, you guys are watching this video now, so you want to know about what do we do now that it's 4. I think it's hard to say, even though I think Kentucky's the right side, I don't recommend taking 4 when you could have had 6.5. So I think I'd be more open to taking a shot with the money line because the difference isn't as much. So I'm certainly, just because it's 4, I'm not going to tell anyone to bet Mississippi State because I do think Kentucky's the right side. I think it would be a little bit irresponsible to play Kentucky at +4. So, Joe, I'll just throw it out there. I think Kentucky can bounce back and win this game. So now, I think I'd look to them on the money line to get it done. I just don't think the price isn't as different, where I think you could live with a few cents off the money line as opposed to taking 2.5 points worse than you could have got a couple days ago.
All right, interesting style. We'll let you know one of these teams 6-0 against the number in the first half. The other team 1-4, not scoring more than 2 touchdowns in any game. Which one's which, Drew?
I'm gonna guess Kentucky is. You know what? I don't want to look stupid. I'm not 100% sure.
No, you're spot on because Kentucky can't score enough in the first half to cover a thing. In fact, the only game they covered early was that Florida game. Every other game they've lost. Yeah, and 6-0, plus averaging more than 20 points in the first half is Mr. Leach and Mississippi State. What do you got, Trig?
I was just going to say what you might be able to do here just to maybe offset the move based on your sort of handicap of Kentucky first half is maybe you bet Kentucky first half for a nominal amount or, pick an amount, knowing that if they don't hit the first half, you can come over the top with the second half and then maybe get your better number that way. So you either get your win or you go in down at halftime, but you bet it for an amount that you can still come over the top and make some money. Yep. And then you still have Kentucky at a good number. It's just a more creative way to look at it if you miss the 6.5, which if you haven't bet it yet and you're watching this video, you probably have.
2.5 is what that first half line is right now. Mississippi State, the single most profitable first half team in the country this season. We'll see if that continues as we move on out west. Oregon State taking on to Washington State. The Beavs, 3.5 is what they are laying here at home. Back to Corvallis, home sweet home. 52.5 is the number on this one for a total. Chance Nolan, no Chance Nolan. Drew, what do you think here, my man? Well, a lot of question marks, obviously, but some people might say whether it's Gervinson or Nolan, not a big deal. Oregon State much better at home than away. Are you buying it?
The Chance Nolan injury, I think, is something to note here, and it looks like he is pretty banged up, and I think that gives an edge here towards the underdog. I like Washington State. I mean, I lost on them this past week to USC, but I'm not afraid to go back to the well. If I think a team can be a moneymaker in the season, I'll take one loss and look to ride them back. And a big reason why, their quarterback, Cameron Ward, if you don't know his story, it's pretty cool. From Incarnate Word, he was he threw for a bunch of yards, over 45 touchdowns. He was the player of the year in the Southland Conference. Of course, FCS making the step up here. His head coach got the OC job for Washington State, and he followed along. So 8 straight wins in this series. Washington State catching +3.5 here. I think the quarterback kind of question marks on the Oregon State side, and the success that Washington State has had offensively, I think Washington State wins outright. So I'll take the 3.5. That's the one I like the most on this card, and I'll sprinkle some on the money line here, Joe.
All right, liking Washington State to get it done. How about you, Merril? You leaning one way or the other in this matchup?
Well, from what I've seen a couple of days ago, it said Chance Nolan out. I don't think that's definite, but it doesn't look like they're expecting him to play. Backup Gulberson, who's had the most attempts, actually has a better rating this season than Nolan, a 143 versus a 136. So might not be too much of a drop-off here in this game. The question for me is, which Oregon State team shows up. I had a best bet on them a few weeks ago, +5.5 at WagerTalk.com, and they cashed against USC, led that game outright until the late 17-14 loss. So a strong showing. I think they were predictably flat in the game the following week in the thin air and altitude at Utah, 42-16 loss. That was a tough game, 4-0 turnover deficit as well. They also, keep in mind, had a 4-0 turnover deficit at home against USC and only lost by 3 and still covered. So this is a good team. Did they get back on track last week? Kind of a lackluster 28-27 win at Stanford. I think this could be the breakout game for them, even with the quarterback uncertainty. And there is a little bit of line value in this game. I make the line actually 4.5, so it's not where I want it to be. There's actually no line, but it's a little bit high. But if they're healthy and if they get the quarterback play expected, I think this point spread could be a little bit short here, and I would lean Oregon State.
I should mention too, guys, the top wide receiver, top running back for Washington State out in this game being reported. Bell and Nakia Watson will not be available for Washington State, so a couple of weapons on the road they won't have access to. Trig, how are you leaning in this game?
I agree with Drew Martin. I like the points here. And so first off, let's start with the quarterback. If Nolan is out, I do think there's a little bit of a drop here. And, so Gulbranson played okay last week, but he faced a Stanford team that doesn't get after the quarterback. Washington State will get pressure on the quarterback, and I think that could be a little bit of an issue. Washington State also hasn't allowed a 200-yard rusher this season. And that's probably an issue for Oregon State because their offense, in my opinion, really needs that rushing attack to go to reach their sort of full potential. Cameron Ward, I like him a lot. He didn't turn the ball over last week, which was great to see. Washington State going into last week's game against USC had committed 2 or more turnovers in each game. And that final score, I really felt like Washington State played good enough and a clean enough game last week to cover against USC. Of course, USC goes down, kicks the field goal, wins by 16, and they don't get the money. But I really didn't think Washington State played poorly. I just think USC is that good, and we'll talk about more about that in a minute. Washington State has owned this series 8 straight against Oregon State. I believe it's 2013, the most recent win in the series for the Beavers. And, it goes back to something we've talked about on this show a couple of times, specifically toward the beginning of the season. Oregon State's just not a team that I really want to lay points with. They're a team last year that was really good in the underdog role. Steve Merril already talked about it. He cashed with them in the underdog role against USC. But as a favorite, I don't want to lay points with this team. And Joe, there's 2 games on their schedule last week against Stanford and against Fresno State that really probably should have been. I'm not going to even say could have been losses. They probably should have been losses. I mean, sort of a miracle finish last week against Stanford. And Fresno State, they go for 2 on the final play of the game to get the win. I mean, this team their results, in my opinion, are a little bit inflated because of that. Just not a team I want to lay points with. I'm with Drew Martin. I'd take the points and would not be shocked if Washington State bounces back from that USC loss with a win here.
All right, Washington State in Corvallis taking points. And that leaves us to another very interesting game coming up in the Pac-12. Who'd have thunk it at this point? Utah taking on USC. Another one of these. Utah at home versus Utah on the road. 3.5 at home. They are the favorite. 65 is the total. Drew Martin, we got Utah laying it at home here. Do you agree with that? Are they the better team in this one?
Oh, Joe, this game is tough for me. I do think that they are the better team. I really am. And the reason it's tough is I lost on them last week. I lost on them week 1. So I kind of, not my readings or my timing on Utah hasn't been good. But I'm telling you, Joe, I've been doing this as my straight job now for 8 years. One thing I've learned coming back on this, everything points towards Utah in terms of just, disciplined handicapping approach. They're coming off of a loss. They're heading back home to Salt Lake, altitude. They're hosting USC. This is a place where the Trojans have struggled. I think matchup-wise, a lot points towards Utah as well. But USC is kind of the sexy team coming off of a win. Trig just talked about it against Washington State. Not really sure they should have covered, but hey, they did. So the money looking towards USC. The only problem I have with Utah is I don't want to lay that hook on the 3 here, Joe, because they haven't really dominated in the trenches like I thought they would this season. And so I do kind of pump the brakes a little bit on Utah just kind of rolling over them in the trenches like we've seen Utah do in Pac-12 play in years past. That's why I want to wait until it gets down to 3, which it's not at 3 right now. That's why I haven't bet it. But as soon as it does, Joe, I'm going to jump on the home team, the Utah Utes.
All right, he's looking at the Utes getting it done here in this one at home. 2 lost Ute teams, Merrill. Hard to believe at this point. Weren't we talking about them just like running the table in the Pac-12? It just seems like it was yesterday, and then they come to Florida, and that didn't work out all that well. So what do you think? Couldn't get past UCLA. Can they get past USC?
But that's an excellent point, Joe, because Utah is a team that thought they could sneak into that playoff 4, right, as, you know, from the Pac-12. And now it's USC is going to be the team that tries to do that. And even when they lost to Florida, a game that could have gone either way in week 1, Utah still had a chance, right? They run the table. They win the conference championship. They still have a chance. That chance is officially done after last week's loss at UCLA as a 3.5-point road favorite. That's my concern with Utah, is exactly where their mindset is this week. But I think they do show up here. And if they do show up, I do feel they're the better team still than 6-0 USC. I touched on this earlier with the Oregon State game. USC barely beats Oregon State, comes from behind a few weeks ago, despite having a 4-0 turnover edge in that game on the road. They only win 17-14. They've only played one other road game this season. That was in-state short trip against Stanford. And they had a 4-0 turnover edge in that and only won by 13. And Stanford's turned out to be pretty mediocre at best. This is a huge step up in class on the road, thin air and altitude on top of that. USC has 1 interception and 188 pass attempts and no fumbles this year. 1 turnover total in 6 games. And then here's the biggest clincher of all. Well, first of all, my math model favors Utah by 6.5, okay? So even if there is a little bit of a flat spot, we're getting about a field goal of line value. But Drew mentioned that ugly number of 3.5. Well, the public loves USC in this game. And, you know, this will be in my top 25 college football video on Friday night. These are 2 top 25 programs. Utah has fallen 9 spots to number 20, but they're still ranked. But I don't talk a lot about public data. That's for that NFL Fade the Public on Saturday. This is an interesting game because USC is a very public underdog this week in college football, and that's always a red flag in high-profile games, high-profile sports. So I'd like Utah in this game. We get some line value. We're fading the public in it as well. Let's just hope the Utes show up and play hard still.
All right, Utah at home, Trig. It's always been something you have to look at. On the road, they worry you. At home, not so much. What do you think we're going to get here?
Joe, I have so many thoughts on this game. First, I'll start with the fact that, yes, Utah at home, that venue is a real thing. I've been a couple times, and a really good friend that lived in Salt Lake. One of the most fun games I've ever been to was Rice Eccles Stadium at night, which this game is. And that's the thing. It's an 8 p.m. Eastern start, which means it's about 5, 6 o'clock out there. It's a night game. They should have a great crowd for that game. And Utah's been good at home, but, and I'll just throw this out there, like, I'm probably way higher on USC than maybe not most are now, but definitely the most were coming into the season. Went on WagerTalk programming, talked about liking them to win the Pac-12, taking some on them to win the college football playoff. So I've definitely been a little biased toward USC on this current run, which has, you know, it's kept me off of a couple, you know, potential pitfalls. That's for sure. I think last week was like a great scenario to go against them with the points, but just haven't really wanted to bet against USC. And I don't want to bet against them here. Now, listen, Steve said that it's he's right. Like USC, and there's a couple other ones this week that'll probably be kind of public dogs. Doesn't mean they're not going to cash. And I know a respected group that took, I believe, 4 earlier this week with USC. I think it's down to 3.5. Utah is a favorite against an unbeaten opponent. 1-12 last 13 against the spread, a stat that I found very interesting. And maybe the best sort of number I found in regards to this game is Lincoln Riley as a conference underdog is 5-0. So he's not a dog very often, but his teams function well in that role. Listen, USC has some issues, you know, that Utah may be able to run here. And if Utah can really run all over USC, that might be good night in this scenario. But USC, they find a way to make plays. Their offense, like Williams, Jordan Addison, they're like big play guys, and it kind of has worked for them so far. So, you know, will we see that run out at some point for USC? Maybe, but a lot of people have thought that it would have already run out, and it hasn't. They keep winning, they keep covering, and it is the dream crusher spot, a spot I love to go against. Steve brought it up. Utah losing that game to UCLA last week means that they are not going to be college football playoff bound this year. And that is a thing. So, Steve, Joe, I think I'm going to take the points here. I'm going to keep riding the USC Trojans. I just think that this is kind of their year. So give me USC plus the points. Will not be surprised if they win again.
All All right, taking it there on the road against Utah. Big Pac-12 should be a good one there, guys. All three of these games should be fantastic, which is why it's kind of hard to pick one that maybe these guys like a little bit more than the rest or go off the board. Either way, Drew, we're going to start with you, man. Which game here are you leaning towards a little bit more than the rest?
I'm heading to the Conference of Champions, the middle game we talked about, Joe. 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific kick. Washington State, the Cougs, plus 3.5. If you shop around, looking at the WagerTalk Live odds screen, offshore, there is a key offshore, plus 4. Maybe put that extra half point in your pocket. But 8 straight wins in this series. Cameron Ward, already talked about him. Like this kid, athletic, good, can throw the football. And Oregon State 2-6 against the spread at home off of back-to-back road games. Got that from Mark Lawrence. Chase Nolan, also note he is a little bit banged up. So plus 3.5, plus 4 if you shop around and find it. Washington State. Give me the Cougs, Joe. My best bet.
Taking the Cougs, getting it done. Drew Martin, guys, he is locked and loaded, by the way, over at WagerTalk.com. Visit his page today as we get ready for some playoff baseball, NFL, college basketball just around the corner. Go pick up one of those all-access packages, and you never got to worry about missing any of Drew's plays there at WagerTalk.com. Merril, where are you heading? I have a feeling I know where you're going, but where are you heading here in this one?
Yeah, just Rose, I'm actually going to probably disagree with Adam on this one, but I want to point it out still because it'll be in my college football top 25 video. So let's look at a free play for Saturday college football, a night game for Saturday night. And this game, of course, is going to be part of my college football top 25 preview video on Friday nights. And then I have the NFL Fade the Public video on Saturday afternoons. And this one actually is a morph of both because we have a very public underdog this Saturday night in college football, and that's the USC Trojans. And it's fully understandable why, because they've only turned the ball over once all season. No fumbles, 1 interception. They've gone 6 straight wins. However, their 2 road games haven't been too impressive. A lackluster win against Stanford and a real lackluster fortunate win at Oregon State a few weeks ago in which they pulled out from behind 17-14. Despite having a 4-0 turnover edge, they still barely won that game. And now they have their toughest road game of the season at Utah. Now, I can always make a case for both sides. My concern in this game is definitely that Utah might be a little flat after their second loss of the season, a heartbreaking loss against UCLA, which definitely officially eliminates them from national title contention. But they already kind of knew their season was in jeopardy after that loss at Florida in week 1. This might be their bowl game. You know, this might be their national championship game at home, thin altitude, thin air. And my power ratings favor Utah by 6.5, so we get some line value as well. So if Utah shows up, I think they're the better team in this game, and they win and cover the -3.5. So we'll fade the public college football style on Saturday night with the Utah Utes -3.5. Quick reminder, college football top 25 video Friday, NFL Fade the Public Saturday. Hit the subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts when those videos go live right here on WagerTalk TV, and get my official best bets and additional free plays on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, you know, they've only had, this will be their 3rd home game, I believe, for Utah, too. And boy, oh boy, taking on USC. Nothing will make them forget about those losses like a big win against USC. But boy, oh boy, they're going to have their hands full here. How about it there, Trig? Is there a game you might be looking at? We want to hurry up and ask you before you change your mind again. So tell me, which one of these games are you looking at here?
No, this one's pretty solid for me. I just was trying to switch up the bets I've been giving out on a couple different shows, but Steve Merril and I talked about this one on Wager Talk today. I think it's worth bringing up again because I do like it quite a bit, and that's the Duke Blue Devils plus the 7 points against the North Carolina team that I'm happy to fade. I've been fading them when I can all season. Listen, last week they win a game despite giving up 538 yards to Miami. I have this defense rated far and away the worst in the ACC. And that's saying something because there is some not so good teams at the bottom of that ACC conference. But North Carolina, they've been a bet against me, a team for me since the beginning of the season. They will continue to be a bet against team to me as long as they're going to lay points and especially lay key numbers in a game like this one that I think Duke is going to want quite a bit. 3 straight years, North Carolina has knocked this Duke team around. And you know what? The football rivalry doesn't get hyped up like the basketball one does. But I can tell you right now, to those kids, especially the Duke upperclassmen that might be getting their last crack at UNC, they definitely care about this game. I think they might be a little bit more up for this game than UNC is, who comes off of a win over Miami and now has to go on the road to play Duke in a game that they're kind of expected to win. So I think Duke will move the ball here. And you know what? North Carolina, overall on the season, 32 points per game, 466 yards per game. I'm happy to go against that if you're going to give me the key number of 7, and would not be at all surprised if Duke won this game outright. So let's take Duke plus 7, best bet for the show, and wouldn't be surprised if they got it done and got the money line win.
All right, taking Duke and the points here against North Carolina ACC battle. Merril, he's taking the Utes. Get it done there. Very public underdog, USC says, while Drew says, I'm going to hang out in the Pac-12, and I am back in the dog in Washington State. Give him the 3.5. But don't forget, guys, NFL, Major League Baseball playoffs, all three of these gentlemen, some of the most profitable in all of those sports, available right now over at WagerTalk.com. Grab those best bets. I mean, it's Thursday. Even if you go with a 3-day all-access package, you don't have to worry about missing any of the plays all weekend long. That's the way to do it, guys. Get them as they post them. You get them over at Wager Talk. Visit Drew Martin. Visit Steve Merril. And, of course, visit Adam Trigger. And let's make it an extremely profitable Week 7. And don't forget the live odds page. Also there, Drew, you saw him looking it up. It's kind of the must-have, guys, on your desktop, on your phone, on your tablet. It's the free live odds page at WagerTalk.com. What a great, great handicapping tool to have. All right, we will be back again tomorrow, Friday edition, wrapping up another week here. 3 more games to preview for you, and should be a hell of a weekend. So make sure you hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner. Hit the subscribe button. Download the brand new WagerTalk TV app, and make plans to come back and join us again tomorrow. On behalf of Steve Merril, Adam Trigger, and Drew Martin, guys, we appreciate you hanging with us. Best of luck with your plays tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck.
Hey, NHL fans, the wait is over. The National Hockey League gets underway on Tuesday, October 11th, and last season, 8 WagerTalk handicappers went over 50 units in the NHL. To celebrate the start of the season, we are offering a 7-day NHL package for only $49. Yes, that's only $7 a day, and it will be valid through Sunday, October 9th. Don't worry, NBA fans, we'll be running the same special for you next week.